Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the after party. Woo! Should we get some tunes on?
Some tunes.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, so this is, I guess, where we can come and hang and talk about what's the word? Decompress from our lovely session. Talk about how everything's gone, and we've got some questions here to answer as well that we didn't have time to go through in the session. So, yeah, let's kick things off. How did you guys think that all went?
Catastrophically, of course. No, I'm just joking. Someone in the chat mentioned that we kind of all win because honestly, we're comparing these two great tools that really make the developer experience and just the whole experience of creating test automation really smooth and really nice. And I think we're like, uh, what is the opposite of like comparing like lesser evils? We're comparing greater goods here.
Yeah, yeah,
So overall, I feel good. Of course, I'm a little sad that Cypress didn't win this one. Maybe a little surprised also, but I guess that's kind of my tunnel vision for the tool. But yeah, overall, I think it was even in the feedbacks that this was a really nice event.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
guess for a bit of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andy.
I was gonna say I was surprised by the results, to be honest. I recorded all the percentages as we went along, and even though like Playwright won a majority of rounds, most of them were still fairly close.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the vote counts, but I can at least add up all the percentages won in each round, and it was 307 to 393. So it still was, fairly close as an overall type of thing.
Yeah.
And I think if we had done this on like a different day, maybe it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There were lots that I learned throughout the whole session that made me think I was veering like this about which framework kind of appealed to me. And they're both great, aren't they? Do you remember that so Cypress won, for context, I guess, Cypress won 2 of the 7 rounds that we had.
Yep.
And Playwright won 5, but it was very, very tight margins. Do we remember the particular rounds that Cypress won?
The first one was the developer experience. So that was one
right.
that went for Cypress. And the other one that Cypress won was the login, which was kind of surprising to me because I didn't feel like, I felt like the two tools are kind of very similar in terms of handling the login. What did feel kind of surprising was the plugins part that went to Playwright. We explicitly mentioned that Playwright doesn't really support plugins, although like you can use plugins from like other frameworks, and you probably have a better way of explaining that. But with Cypress and its huge community and all of those plugins, you can integrate into Cypress as well as you can integrate Cypress into different tools. I felt like that was a really strong argument for Cypress, and it didn't win that one. So that was quite a surprise to me, to be honest.
And I think the audience knew that too, right? They were surprised by that one. Were you
voted,
expecting that result, Andy?
Yeah, like I I was surprised at the overall results. I was also surprised at that round. I mean, I guess the reason why people still voted for Playwright was the idea of multilingual support. Maybe that was so it's not necessarily a pluggability thing, but maybe like an integration thing or a breadth or reach kind of thing. Maybe people sided with. I don't know.
We really need to go through that chat transcript and see, pull out some future rounds for a future contest.
That would be actually, you know what would be a good idea Philip, here's an idea. If we get that chat as a transcript, I don't know if it's possible, but if we can get that, maybe you and I should collab a Medium article where we retrospect on this, like kind of independent. Because like you and I, we're good with each other. And
Yeah.
for everyone who's listening, Philip and I are like bros. We are not competitors in any sense of
No.
that idea. So like you and I would be a good duo to kind of review that together if we have time, and be like, hey, what is going on here? Why is this so spicy? What, like, yeah. Anywho, that's just an
I
idea.
guess, yeah, people are going to have like strong opinions about different things, and especially about things that they're used to, right? I think like the whole discussion about page objects, I felt like I needed to mention that today. It's a myth that this is an anti-pattern. You can use that. The argument here is that there are maybe better ways, and I tried to make a really strong argument for Cypress commands, and I felt like it didn't land. Like when I looked into the chat, it was like, why would I even use this? I mean, just try it. It's awesome.
I love them.
Like that was another round I swore was going to Cypress. Like, because I
Same.
like the Cypress commands. Like, I understand why they're not in Playwright, because doing it in different languages is hard. But like, I like Cypress commands, and I thought that was going to take that round. And the fact that it didn't, I'm like, I mean, fixtures are cool, fixtures are great, but really, like,
Yeah, I think we should stop bashing on the audience.
audience, we love you. It's nothing personal.
Yeah, of course. There was
We're
just
trying to
surprising.
understand.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, I love having lots of different opinions. Like, I think that's great. It really makes for an interesting, like those first few rounds were tight, right? That was really fun.
Yeah.
And it's great that people are passionate about these things. Like, I love it. I've been to, a lot of events where the audience stays quiet and doesn't say too much. And you want the opposite of that. You want to know people are passionate and interested in what they're doing. You're speaking to people who are passionate and interested in what they're doing. So yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, exactly. It was a really good like reality check, and it was like really good learning experience. Like we tried to give some knowledge out there, show these different tools, but I think I believe I speak for Andy as well, that we learned quite a lot just looking at the chat, looking at the interaction, and looking at the votes. That all right, I guess this is the reality of like real world where people have different kinds of problems and need to solve different kinds of issues, etc. So it was definitely eye-opening, this one.
Can I ask a quick question? Which tool is more widely used?
Cypress.
I thought it was Cypress.
Is
so
it?
Cypress is on paper more popular.
Yes.
I thought because I've seen you send that NPM trend graph where essentially Cypress and Playwright met, and I'm not sure if that means the usage, but I thought it might be relevant for answering this question.
So a while ago, Playwright and Cypress, or Selenium, I can't even remember, they met in terms of GitHub stars.
Okay.
Oh, GitHub stars. Okay.
Yeah. That was when that one crossed. I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Because like when we look at the history of browser automation tools, Selenium was kingpin, and it's really the only thing for like forever. It kind of evolved, it merged with WebDriver, and then it was dominant. And so like Cypress is in the gamut of history still very new. I mean, I first heard about Cypress around 2018. And at that point, it had only been around for like a year or two, I think. It was like a new hotness, but it hadn't become feature rich yet. And then Playwright first hit the scene like in 2020, I think, but it didn't really, maybe it was a little, I can't remember exactly when, but it's like, it didn't really catch attention until the past year or two. And so Cypress has had a lot of time to flourish. Playwright is still very much dark horse up and coming. but like in terms of like legitimate popularity, it's you can try to look at a whole bunch of things to try to judge that. One data point that I can share is I've actually looked at Applitools data. You know, for internally we track, you know, who signs up for accounts and who runs which of our SDKs.
Okay.
And the statistics on that are that Cypress is by far our most popular SDK in terms of the first, like, people who register a new account, their first test run. Cypress is number one. Right up underneath of that is Selenium and Java is number two. And everything else is like a fraction. And Playwright is down there at like number 6 or something. You know, it's like huge by huge margin. It's like Cypress up here, Selenium, Java up here, everything else down here.
Interesting. So maybe then this kind of event really shines a light on Playwright as an up and coming, you know, a player that people think there's a lot in there to go at and chew over.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question? Sorry, if I can jump in, because it was interesting what Andy was saying. I would like to know, for you as a Playwright ambassador and someone who uses Playwright actively, what do you think is like the biggest appeal of Playwright?
So for me personally, the biggest appeals are multi-language, because I like to choose to be a Python person. I can do all the things, but if I get to choose, I like being in Python. And so it's like I can either have a tool that does Python or a tool that doesn't. Of course, you know. And so when I'm in the Python world, it's either Selenium or Playwright. Cypress isn't a choice. So it's like, okay, well, I think Playwright is better. So for me, language, and also number 2, speed. That's a big factor for me, because in my previous 2 roles before I came to Applitools, I was working on these very high scale test automation projects. And I saw firsthand just how much a couple extra seconds here and there adds up over a suite of like 1,000+ tests, you know? And it's I spent a lot of time doing things like tuning and performance and scaling. You know, I mean, at my previous company, we had a Selenium grid that could run up to 100 tests at a time. And the limit was not the test infrastructure, it was that the app under test would break down after that. You know, like and the reason we hyper parallelized so much was because we were trying to get tests run in the shortest amount of time possible for continuous testing. And so, yeah, like seeing firsthand the speed of Playwright, and then experimenting, comparing across, and then seeing that data confirmed by multiple sources, to me that was convicting. It's like, okay, well, I can sacrifice a little bit of the developer experience in order to work in the things I like and to have that super fast speed.
That's interesting, because I'm the other way around. But then again, I haven't worked on like a very big project. I work for Slido. It's not the largest. It's not like an enterprise heavy, super big system where I would happily sacrifice a couple of seconds on the CI, but I would not like to sacrifice the debugging experience and the speed of delivery of those tests. So I come from like a very startup-y environment where the speed would be everything, but the speed of delivery, I needed to have that test ready fast as possible. If I can develop it fast, that's good. If I can debug it fast, if it fails, I have like 15 minutes to fix it, because we have a release, we have something going on. It's in the pipeline, it's blocking the pipeline. We need to fix it ASAP. So even though it takes a little longer on the pipeline, we can always add that extra parallel step. But as for the human part of the thing, where you need to dive in and debug and do stuff like that, that's the time that's costly for us.
Sure.
I think we jumped in. Beth was. I kind of diverted the conversation.
No, I love that
because
question.
I was interested in Andy's experience. But Beth, go ahead.
It's great. So you're kind of coming to the same problem but from different ends, or reaching out with the same problem. Ultimately, it's about saving yourselves time, whether that's in performance of a huge pack, or whether that's time in debugging and creating and having that developer experience that won Cypress that round. I wanted to so we're gonna I think we're gonna wrap up in a, but before that I really wanted to ask a few of the questions that folks asked during the event that we didn't have time to get round. It's funny because in the get-togethers we had to plan the event beforehand, Pam mentioned that she was worried we wouldn't have enough content to last an hour, and all three of us sort of said, I think we'll be okay. And we were too, right? Yeah. So little quick fire round of some questions here for you both. I'll go ahead with a question of test data, which we didn't talk about too much. Handling of test data, is there any support in Cypress or Playwright to handle test data, as we have a data provider in Selenium? How is test data kind of handled in your platforms? Andy?
I mean, the ways that I would think about handling test data would not necessarily be framework specific, right? I would kind of be doing the same stuff whether I'm using Playwright, Cypress, or Selenium. Things like, and it also depends, like test data is a big thing. Like what kind of test data are we talking about? Are we talking about things like the usernames and passwords that need to be kept as secrets? You know, Philip and I showed how to handle that. Are we talking about the data, the product data that needs to be in the system as a prerequisite for testing? And if Philip and I, like a week before this presentation, we even had a powwow on like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do about that? Are we just going to skip it? We're going to address it. Because something like that is like, okay, you know, you can pre-seed your database, or you can do things like make API calls and a before step that would pre-populate. But again, that's, you know, just using the things that are already in your framework. Or, I mean, when we're talking about test data, are we talking about different variations of test case values? Like enter 1 into the field, enter 2 into the field, enter 3 into the field, do like a data-driven approach. I mean, you could do parameterization for stuff like that, I guess. And again, even that isn't so much a Cypress or Playwright thing. That's more of a test runner type thing.
Yeah,
Philip, what do you think about this?
I agree with you. Like the data handling is not really a framework specific thing, but so are selectors, if you think about it. And it's a rich topic, and I feel like the handling of the data is sort of very similar debate, or very rich debate as our selectors. Because there are so many approaches, so many problems you need to solve, so many ways you can go through, and that doesn't even cover like the so many different systems you need to interact with. And oftentimes, we're like Playwright and Cypress are both like UI testing tools. We test web front-end applications, but still we need to handle the backend somehow, right? We need to handle the data. And there are so many different ways of how you can do that. Like if I were to answer for Cypress, like there are two basic ways, right? So everything that happens in Cypress happens in browser, like all of your commands, visit, get, click, etc. But what you can do is to get out of the browser, and you can actually get into node environment where you can run any script you want, right? So if you have a node script that will seed your database, that will run those SQL calls or something like that, you can do that. Additionally, you can just go ahead and hook that step on the configuration event, which is like an event that happens as you are opening the browser. So as your test opens, the first thing it will do, it will call that script, seed your database, and off you go with your tests. Or you can use a simpler approach, and if you have a REST API, as many of the modern applications do, you just go ahead and use your before each hook or some other custom thing, page object, I don't know, to call a couple of requests to prepare your data, right? To, I don't know, create those to-dos or do something like that. But yeah, we're sort of talking about test design and test preparation, which is like a meta topic that doesn't, as Andy said, like it doesn't really, it's not really connected to the framework. So if you're choosing a framework and you're asking questions like, how do I prepare my data? How do I seed my data? That's actually not something that will be the decider. It's not like any of these tools handle this one better.
Okay, that's a good thorough response there. Quick question on Cucumber. We touched on Gherkin and BDD and things in our section on patterns, I believe. Which framework would be better integrating with Cucumber? They both sounded like they were good options, right?
How does one judge better? Yeah, I'm like, Philip, let me ask you a question about this then, because does you show the Cypress has a plugin for Cucumber or for Gherkin or whatever, right? I don't know if it's like is it like a Cucumber JS plugin, or is it just some other random plugin some dude made?
Someone made that. I don't know if they're a company or like a open source enthusiast. I don't know. It's there. It's quite widely used. Like on my Discord server, I get asked about it all the time. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does. Do you know if it does any special kind of reporting tied to those steps, or is it just like garbage in, garbage out in terms of results?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of reporting it does.
Okay.
Because essentially, and again, I'm not like that familiar with Cucumber. In fact, that's something I want to discuss with you, because I'm looking at it, it looks a little weird to me, to be honest. and I want to understand it better, because it's widely popular, so there has to be something to it. But yeah, how Cypress handles that, and it handles this not only Cucumber but all kinds of different stuff as well. So you write your code. That code, when you hit that Cypress open or npx Cypress run, it gets compiled and injected to the browser. So the compilation step is actually really important. This goes for TypeScript as well. So your TypeScript code will get compiled into JavaScript and then injected to the browser and ran. With the Cucumber preprocessor, again, this is exactly the thing that's going to happen. You're going to take feature files, and those, again, are just going to get compiled into JavaScript and ran in the browser. And there are some really interesting, funky preprocessors for Cypress, like Markdown preprocessor, which is really interesting because you can have like a very simple example where you would have your HTML, your test code, and I think some explanation or something like that. I don't know, like you have 3 parts, you can have like a really tiny example that you can send to anyone. But in terms of reporting for the Cucumber, that was a question. Sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked. I don't know if there's any difference. I believe it's pretty much the same if you plug any kind of reporter into this.
Cool. Yeah,
and we got an answer from the chat that Cucumber preprocessor uses Cucumber JS internally.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I would have figured it's like, why would somebody make their own? That's kind of weird, but no, that's good to know. Yeah, the reason I ask about the reporting is because that's one of the advantages of using a BDD oriented framework, because you can break things down by step, which it makes things easier to communicate with like your product owners and stuff. It's like you don't have to be a code person in order to understand what's going on in those behaviors. So that's why I was curious if they did anything, because like the basic kind of integration with a BDD framework with a tool like Cypress or Playwright into that. I mean, the Cucumber S kind of frameworks can just make Cypress calls or make Playwright calls, and then it's, you know, like I said, results are garbage in, garbage out. But if they actually had some sort of like deeper integration where it's being smart about how it presents results or being picky or something like that, or it provides some more details, that would be a more interesting kind of integration. And I don't know of anything like that, if that makes sense. So to the question, which one is better? It's kind of like they're the same. There's not one that's better or worse in integrating with Cucumber. It's just they both work, and so you want to take an approach, it's available to you.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm wondering if we've got time for one last question.
One more.
Yeah, one more. Okay. Do we think? Okay, there's a couple of questions about video recording in Playwright.
Okay.
We touched on that really quickly. I know there was a little video of that happening. So recording option is available in Playwright. You can access recordings and add them to bug reports and stuff. That's what you were saying, Andy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's an option. Okay. We've got a kind of technical point here, I guess. Playwright disables video recording if before all is used. Is there a solution you are aware of? Or is
that's Playwright disables video if before all is used? That doesn't sound right to me. I don't know then.
Is a potential bug that's already been fixed, or
I'm not aware of that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That surprises me. That sounds like either a bug or understanding.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I don't know.
I think we'll need to wrap up fairly shortly. There are a few more questions that you guys have access to that I'm sure in combination with the chat transcript you might want to pull out some
Sure.
There might be some ideas there for some reply. What were those songs that you used to those clapback songs that someone would write a song dissing somebody and someone else would write a song?
Oh gosh.
An answer back song. Maybe you want to do something like that.
Perhaps. And I guess on one hand it is a little disappointing to see people being so spicy, because it's like, come on, man, it's just a fun way to compare tools, but
yeah,
I guess in tech opinions rage, right?
Right. And ultimately this stuff is open source and we are all kind of benefiting from the amazing people who are giving their time to make this stuff easier for us all. So yeah.
Yes.
It is very cool. But I just wanted to thank you both for being so kind and seeing me through my first ever moderation session.
Well, thank you for moderating.
Awesome job.
It was great.
Beth.
Yeah. A new tick to my little bucket list there. I've got a little tech bucket list of things I want to give a go to, and that was on there. So thank you very much. Any final words before we depart for the? I guess we're evening and morning still, right? Depending on where we are.
Yeah. it's just crossed into afternoon here in California.
Okay. Well, it is nighttime here in the UK.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Same here in Slovakia.
Any final?
Just have extra hour. Any final words? Well, I guess in my case would be give custom commands a try, right? Give it a shot. I don't know what else to say. Like, it was definitely a fun event. Looking forward to having something similar in the future. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, that's about it. And if anyone wants to learn Cypress, you know where to find me.
Fab. Andy, last word, over to you.
Last word. I don't know. I'm feeling kind of empty right now, drained of all the thoughts. I just want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everyone who helped pull this off. Apple Tools for sponsoring, Beth, you for moderating, Philip for all of your work putting together the Cypress content. If anybody's still to this live stream, I want to highlight that preparing for this rematch took a lot more work than preparing for the original one. And so, Philip, kudos to you for not only the code but also for providing the example app, and for also taking a bit of a lead this time in casting the vision for the rounds and the outlines and that kind of stuff. So that was very, very much appreciated. It's something that I want everyone to be aware of. And also Pam for essentially logistics for the event. That was
and
very,
our other
very
moderators
helpful as well.
too, right? The guys that were looking through the chat.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh! I almost forgot the Cypress and Playwright ambassadors who helped moderate Q&A and were live in the chat. For
Yeah.
Cypress, that was Tally. Who was it for? Or sorry, for Playwright it was Tally. Who was it for Cypress?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. So thank you, Tally. Thank you, Jonathan. You both did an excellent job. I hope you're listening to this. If not, we'll make sure to give you thanks offline.
Yeah, great way to wrap it up. I forgot to say my thanks, and I would probably repeat the same thing as Andy, minus the praises for me. But yeah, it was a great effort. It was a lot of fun preparing that one, and great job everyone. Great job Beth for moderating. It was an awesome one. I think it certainly was an upgrade from the last one. Like, we took a deeper
Yes.
dive. We looked into
Yes.
more detail. I think we provided more value. At least it felt like that for me. Hopefully it felt for the audience. So yeah, thank you everyone.
Fantastic. On that note, we will bid you farewell, and I'm hopeful that we will see each other again at one point.
Absolutely.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye
Thanks again.
everyone. Bye bye.